In this video, we see how to refactor the code of the library system using generics. This is intended to reduce the size of the code a little bit. And where do we use generics? For this, we observe that member list and catalog have pretty similar functionality because both are collections. They differ in the type of data they store. Obviously, member list stores members and catalog stores books. But we can use a generic type to say what kind of data that we are storing. So we invent a new class called item list that implements serializable, and we will put generic code here to store items of type T, and T is passed as a parameter to the class. The convention is to use single capital letters for generic parameters. So this would implement the common functionality of both member list and catalog to store an item of type T. That is the plan. We are just getting the basics here. We will see how to do the details subsequently. And what do we store? In this class item list, what field are we going to have to store items of type T? In catalog, we had stuff like this: private list, books equals new linked list. I have indicated in red things that are not quite right. First of all, we have the field name books. That is not quite appropriate. We might want to change it to elements or items or some such more general name. List is java.util.list, that interface. Linked list is java.util.linkedList. They can both be generics, so we need to use the generic version of list by passing the type T. If you look here, the class gets the parameter T, and the field elements is going to be here within the class, and so T is known. So that parameter that we get, the type of the item to be stored, is passed to this interface and class. So the linked list will be capable of storing items of type T. Now, one of the crucial methods of both catalog and member list is search. So look at this search method in catalog. Public book search, and we get a book ID, a string, and we look for a book with this book ID. Again, in red, I have shown tokens that are a bit problematic. First of all, this returns a book, but we are not storing books per se. We are storing T's. So this has to change. Iterator should be using generics, just as linked list and list should. We are not storing books. We are storing items of type T, so these things will have to change. Then a slightly simple thing is the name or the variable ID book. That has to probably change. And this, actually, this should also be in red. Books, it should be elements. Then the more important thing is the type of the parameter. What is wrong with putting string here? Well, in general, it is not desirable. The thing is, how do we know that the item that we are storing is identified by a string? What if it is an integer? What if it is a double or a character? So if you want this item list to be very general, this must go. Instead of string, we should have some generic parameter. The other thing is, this assumes that there is a method called getID for the item that we are storing. Of course, we are not storing books, just books anymore. We could be storing just about anything, and we don't want to make any assumptions on the methods that are in the elements to the extent possible. This is a container, this is a collection. This code is in a collection, and the collection should not be very dependent on the elements that it is keeping. So it is better not to make assumptions about the kinds of methods that are in the elements being stored. So we should try to avoid getID. So there is too much coupling between the container and the object. As I just said, this equals method assumes that there is a getID method in book, which is not quite right. And we don't want to code like this either, book dot equals book ID. What is wrong with it? Instead of book dot get ID, that is, you make an assumption that there is no method called get ID. Can we compare book against book ID? That is also not very desirable. That is covered in a different video.